Okay, recording in progress. All right, so here we go. So we haven't done this in a while. It's going to be the last shiur of this year.
Yeah,
So where are we up to? That's the first question.
I think like 142.
You have 142. We finished 142. Yes or no?
We'll get up to
No,
it.
did not finish 142. I think we're in the middle of 142. Okay, so 142 was pretty difficult. We're kind of towards the end of 142.
Yeah.
Um, okay, Daas Tevunos. So what he was saying in 142 was, well, in this whole section, he's trying to explain how HaKadosh Baruch Hu's anhaga of mishpat, the way HaKadosh Baruch Hu runs the world via the vehicle of mishpat. So
Mhm.
part of that explanation is try to explain how mishpat works even at times when mishpat seems to be suspended.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And what we learned last time, that so so there is the standard mishpat, right? The standard mishpat is that is a hanhaga of schar v'oinish, right? Of reward and punishment. The whole concept of reward and punishment only works within the hanhaga of mishpat. Then he told us that the standard mishpat is, somebody does an avera, he gets punishment. Somebody does a mitzvah, he gets a reward. That's the standard mishpat. Emes, everybody gets what they deserve, truth. However, then there is the, let's say, non-standard mishpat, when HaKadosh Baruch Hu allows Rishayim to prosper, okay, and maybe tzaddikim to
Mhm.
suffer bit by bit, because from tzaddikim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants to take, you know, he wants to, um, what's the word, collect on their sins little by little, right? So they
Uh-huh.
don't stack up a heavy bill. Mashenkin by Rashoim is the other way around. The Kodesh Baruch Hu allows them to continue on their merry ways until their bill racks, becomes so big that it's unsustainable, and then they get destroyed, right? So
Yep.
Ramchal is telling us that is also a din. That is also mishpat, but that's a mishpat that's actually very even more difficult, because allowing the Rishonim to continue to prosper in order to give them a complete punishment in the end, in a certain sense, that's even harsher punishment than from tzaddikim, where they get their punishment little by little.
Mhm.
Okay. Now, what he said was that in the meantime, there during that suspended mishpat period, Hakadosh Baruch Hu is mishtamesh. Hakadosh Baruch Hu uses his koyach of mamshala. In other words, his infinite self, the ability to override. There's an override in play. The override says that really Mishpat should kick in and punish the Rishoyim right away, and maybe even destroy the world with them, because they've gotten to the point that their sins are so great. But Hakadosh Baruch Hu uses his independence to override this need for punishment, and maintains the world out of his sheer willpower, so to speak. Now, then the neshama asks, "Well, how is that possible? Meaning, isn't this a situation where sinners get rewarded, because the world, they still get fed, they still get parnasa, they still get all those things, despite the fact that the world needs to be destroyed?" So then the Ramchal answers that no, that Hakadosh Baruch Hu, during that time of suspended mishpat, Hakadosh Baruch Hu runs the world on minimal. How should I say? Backhanded. I'll call this backhanded. It's backhanded chesed, right? I
Mhm.
provide for the world the minimal that it needs, right? Showing, in other words, Hashem is showing his discontent during that period of time, and there's a period of discontent. He's only providing the minimal necessary. It's sort of like a child that is in detention, so to speak, and whatever, in punishment. So he still gets dinner, but he gets dinner like here, here, eat, just to keep him alive. So on one hand, there is a certain override of chesed that says, you know what, we're going to let the world continue. On the other hand, it's clear that it's backhanded. It's not out of love.
Mhm.
Okay. But meanwhile, the point of all of this is to buy some time to allow the world to then correct its mistakes, right? Either to correct its mistakes, or if they don't correct its mistakes, for the Rishonim to be punished. So again, all of this, I just want to point out, all of this, he's setting up these different ways of HaKadosh Baruch Hu interacting with the world. He's going to set up for the next piece, which we're going to learn today, hopefully, is where he says that the world has history. The world history happens in stages, and the stages are divided between these different types of Hanahaga, again within the Mishpat, because the world, the 6,000 years of the world, is all of the period of Mishpat. But within that 6,000 years, there are going to be different stages, different eras, based on these different types of Mishpat relationship, let's call it.
Manifestation of Mishpat.
Something like that, I guess, yes. So let's see. Where should we start? So I think that's where we're up to.
I think we Kufman base the beginning.
What?
I think when the Kufman base the very beginning.
In the beginning of Kufman base?
Yeah. No. But
No, we did that. We're actually, I think we're towards the end of Kufman base.
oh,
At least that's. Yeah, we definitely did Kufman base.
right. Okay. No, okay, that makes sense.
Everything that I just described
Yeah.
was
That's from
from
Kufman
Kufman
base.
base.
Yeah.
Again, well, let's start again. We're going to repeat some of this, I guess. So we'll start from the words Amnam yesh zman she'akadosh baruch hu misrachek. Do you see that? There is a time when HaKadosh Baruch Hu distances himself.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Alex, you see it?
Yeah. Hold on. What page was that?
It's like in the middle of Kufman base, right? In the middle. Actually, no, it's like 2/3, maybe 3/4 of Kufman base.
Because I remember the line like
The Kufman base.
What line? You tell me.
Oh,
Read.
no, wait a second. Kufman base is very short.
Kufman base is very long, by me at least.
Sorry, I'm in the middle. Okay. Yeah. I'm years got it.
I'm
Wait,
sorry.
page 400. Wait, page 400. Got it.
Okay, read the words.
Amram, יש זמן שהקודש ברוך הוא
Right.
משחק.
Good. Yes. Okay. Okay, we're good. So let's see. Amnam, however, yesh zman she'Hakadosh Baruch Hu misrachik haviyochel me'olom. There's a time when HaKadosh Baruch Hu distances himself from the world. Ve'ein mishpotoi nasa, and his justice is not carried out. Ve'ein mamshaltoi misgales, and his dominion, right, his rulership, his reign, is not revealed. V'hoya ro'oi sheyichorev ha'olam, and it would be proper for the world to be destroyed. Ella shegam bezmanahu Hakadosh Baruch Hu roitz b'kiyuma shel ha'olam. But even at that time, HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants for the world to remain. Ve'oz mekayim oisoi rak b'koyach mamshaltoi. And then at that point, he continues to maintain the world only via his over kind of independent power. Kimitzad hamishpat, because from perspective of justice, eina roi shliiskayim. It's not worthy. It's not proper that it should remain. Umishtamish miroi memusoi. So Hakadosh Baruch Hu taps into his loftiness, right, above worldly status, she'ena nifkam, which is not impacted by by human averos. Ve'ena choser ba'avonos me'odam. It's not diminished by the sins of people. L'kayim ha'olam shelo yovad, to continue upkeep the world that it should not be destroyed. However, that during those times, Hakadosh Baruch Hu does not increase for it, blessings and goodness and expansiveness. Ella adraba, but the opposite. Eina noisin loy kiyum mitzumtzum levad. Hakadosh Baruch Hu provides for it only the minimal necessary. Something that it's something that's absolutely necessary, without which it would be impossible. V'kdeshi is kaim, only to continue to maintain it. Ki ein ha'olam mesukon she'isnahig ba'tova azois, because the world is not mesukon, is not fixed to be guided with goodness. Ela adraba, rather the opposite. Lo dai shein rasar mimenu. It's not that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Ra is removed from it. Ella shegoiver boyoiser. So in other words, on one hand, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, meaning the time for this goodness, right? Let me explain. HaKadosh Baruch Hu should be showering the world with goodness only at the time of complete tikkun. Over here, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is using that goodness of his to provide the minimal maintenance necessary for the world that's not deserved of it. So the same goodness that HaKadosh Baruch Hu was planning to use L'osid Lova in the future to bask the world in blessing, he's now using it only for the minimal necessity of continue to upkeep it. He's tapping it into that goodness, but only in as much as necessary for the world to continue to exist. Because HaKadosh Baruch Hu, out of his goodness, wants to maintain these creations, doesn't want them to be destroyed. So therefore, through his unique and his unparalleled, or only one of a kind power, he continues to maintain it. Even though from the perspective of justice, it should be destroyed. However, all that is only with great precision, right? Minimal great precision, as we explained. So through the fact that HaKadosh Baruch Hu provides for the world in a minimalistic fashion, he shows that the world needs to return to a mode of mishpat, and that it could only be rectified after it returns to the mishpat mode. And that message is sent via the fact that the upkeep is only done minimally. V'harasha goiver, and the evil that strengthens, she'ena is also a sign, the fact that this is not the way it's supposed to be. She'ena teva misal toiva k'mo she'yeh lo eslovek. That the nature of the world is not progressing for the future as it was supposed to be. But rather, the world remains in within the confines of what of HaKadosh Baruch Hu designed for it. With Ella Shelefisha HaKadosh Baruch Hu Nisrachik V'Nisim Min Ha'olam, since HaKadosh Baruch Hu distances and is hidden from the world, Eina Mishpat Nase. So therefore the Mishpat is not carried out. The Ha'oretz Niyoysu Toihu V'Voihu, and the world remains in a state of Toihu V'Voihu. Marashoyim Sholtim Boilam Baz Pneihim, and the Rashoyim they run the world with chutzpah. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu continues to maintain the world only through His absolute will, which is not subjugated to any rule. It's only a maintenance, a minimum maintenance until the time of the light of His justice. And my justice to the light of nations will rest.
Mm-hmm.
1 second. Yeah. Okay. Good. Right. So again, so that this is where he says that there is a certain time when HaKadosh Baruch Hu, should destroy the world, but He doesn't. Okay. However, if you investigate in all the different stations or eras that exist in the world, in the way that Hashem's midah of justice can be revealed. In other words, these different modes of justice. Or Hashem's concealment, revelation of His justice, or the concealment of the justice. So then you'll find that there is a gradation. Again, once again, he does this before. He wants to show that how should I say it? That meaning, just like within the midah of mishpat, there's only a certain amount of modes that are possible.
Mm-hmm.
So too the history of the world will exist through these different eras that are possible.
Each corresponding to each one of the manifestations.
Correct. Right. So again, this is the classic Ramchal, that everything is a logical, what's the word? Logical step, right? Emanation from the previous step. So he had that before with the 5 stages of the world, in terms of this world and the world of Mashiach, then the world of post-Mashiach, then different stages of Olam Haba. So now he's also going to have 5 stages, but now within the 6,000 years. I think it's within, or maybe I'm not sure, but I think it's within the 6,000 years. So Hine. So v'hine kishenigdakte kol hamatzovim meschalfim ba'olam v'inyan gilui mishpot is baruch yisod, right? Nimtzoim ba'adroga mesudonim b'seder godol. So in other words, we'll find a progression, a very logical progression. V'heim chamisha, and again, there's also 5 stages here. V'tiri oisom echad b'zmaneim. So now you'll see one by one. We'll just go through them. Shehoyu, some of them were, v'sheyiyu, and some of them will be at soif shleimusay shel ha'olam sheyiyah le'osid love, from until the perfection of the world, which will be in the future. Right. So again, I'm understanding that these are the 6,000 years, or maybe the 7,000 years. I'm not sure. Hine hazman rishon. So the first set, the first era, the first time, hoya kol shnei ha'alofim shel toihu. These are the first 2,000 years that the Gemara calls Alofim Shel Toihu, the 2,000 years of Toihu, of what's Toihu? Toihu is like a void, emptiness, I don't know, chaos. Okay. Ubiprat begolos Mitzrayim, and especially during the exile of Egypt. So the exile of Egypt was like the peak of the 2,000 years of emptiness.
Uh-huh.
Now the problem is that the problem is that Golus Mitzrayim was after the 2,000 years. The truth, right? The 2,000 years of Toihu technically end with Avraham. Avraham was born in 1948, according to the count that we go by. He was born in 1948. Let's say if you can go with the fact that the Rambam says that at 48 he sort of fully discovered God. So 1948 plus 48, you get to 1996. So somewhere like 1996 was the beginning of Abraham's blossoming. And that's when he started keeping the mitzvahs and the Torah. And so that was the end of the 2,000 years of Tohu. Golus Mitzrayim happened way after that. And yet Ramchal associates Golus Mitzrayim together with the 2,000 years of Tohu. I'm not sure where he's getting this from. The commentator here on the bottom just says that even though the forefathers began keeping mitzvahs and brought Hashem into the world, but their tikkun was not complete. So it was only at the time of Golus Mitzrayim that the 2,000 years of Tohu came to an end. But okay. So I'm not sure. But that's what the Ramchal is saying. The Ramchal is saying that if anything, that the exile of Mitzrayim was even the further crystallization of the 2,000 years of Tohu. Right. Again, this is. I mean, it's based on the Gemara. I'm just saying 26 generations. Let me just think for a second. Right. The Gemara says that this that we say in Psuki de Zimra of Shabbos and Yom Tov, right? 26 Hoidul Hashem Kitov Kilo Elam Chazdoi, that there are 26 generations before Matan Torah, right? It makes sense. 26 generations before Matan Torah that HaKadosh Baruch Hu was Mekayim the world through his chesed, right? Kilo Elam Chazdoi. Hashem's chesed is forever. So the 26 generations that HaKadosh Baruch Hu was Mekayim the world through his chesed. So I guess that's where Ramchal is getting his ideas from, right? That the 26 generations were up to Matan Torah. That was the end of that period of time of Tohu. Okay, so let's keep going.
Mm-hmm.
So what about the 2 years again? V'hainu shezehu zman she'akel baruch hu mistater legamri me'olamai. This 26 generation, 2,000 years, is the time when HaKadosh Baruch Hu conceals himself from the world completely. Okay? V'nire ki'ilu chas v'sholem ozav Hashem es ha'oretz. And it appears as if HaKadosh Baruch Hu left behind the world. Okay? Again, I'm just coming back to this number 5. And what he's saying over here is that in the very beginning of Daas Tevunos, the Ramchal said that the essence of Shema, Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, the essence of that is to counteract also five different mistakes or mistaken beliefs, right? And one of the mistaken beliefs was that HaKadosh Baruch Hu left the world and kind of let it run on its own, right? So my sense is, and I have to look carefully and try to kind of connect the dots. But my sense is that these five tkufos, these five eras of mishpat, may also relate to the five different ways that there were mistakes. Okay, maybe, but in any case, so again, according to Ramchal, the first 2,000 years in Golus Mitzrayim, that was Hashem's total hiding of himself. Again, I don't fully understand all of this right now. I'm just processing and thinking about it. But within the first 2,000 years is also the flood, right? Because Baruch Hu punished the whole world. So, I don't know how that all fits into this cheshbon. But in any case, so it appears during those times that as if Hashem left the world. It's as if he doesn't see and doesn't hear the acts of people. And then at that point it appears as if the Hashem's justice is not active at all. It's that it's potentially it's there, but it's not active. And it's necessary for the existence of the world. And it's technically, logically necessary from the order based on which HaKadosh Baruch Hu set up his providence. Because it's because of his love for his creations that he guides the world. To know what to do in order to bring them to complete tikkun. So in other words, during that time, behind the scenes, maybe there is something happening to bring the world closer to the tikkun, but it's not visible at all on earth amongst daily actions. Because HaKadosh Baruch Hu, during those 2,000 years, he completely covers up, conceals his standard mode of mishpat. And the world is running completely on toihu v'voihu.
Yeah, but it's not fair to apply mishpat. Mishpat not here, Torah is not here yet. So it's not fair to apply law if the law not given.
I don't understand.
We have 7 commandments, but
I mean, I think that's what he's saying. I'm not sure if I hear a question. That is exactly what he's saying. He's saying that within those 26 generations, since there was no Torah given, so the world is not governed by justice. You cannot. This, I guess, that's part of the chidush of Avraham during that time, that he was able, despite the fact that everything in the world appeared dark and glim, and what's the word? Whatever. World that was seemed to be ownerless. Okay. Despite that, Abraham was able to kind of see the owner from behind the curtain, even though it's completely not apparent within the curtain. Okay, let's keep going. Amra Neshama. Okay, that's the end. We just find that's the end of Kuf Mem Beis. But Neshama interrupts and she goes and she says, Amra Neshama, I need to and put myself in between your words. So that your drasha does not get mixed up in my mind. Because you said something and you repeated something that I don't understand. That I don't understand. So what is that? Amarta. Now you said shebeshosha HaKadosh Baruch Hu mastir mishpato. You said that during those times when HaKadosh Baruch Hu conceals his mishpat, his justice, also oilam hoilech bikilkul v'toihu v'voyu. Then the world is running on the mode of destruction and toihu v'voyu. Amor no li achas mishtaim. So now tell me either one of two. Loy timna, and don't hold back. Oisha and hogatia bechesed. So either we're going to call that a state of chesed, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is running the world bechesed, kilo elam chastoi, or b'mishpat, or HaKadosh Baruch Hu is running the world on justice. Ima an hogahi bechesed, if this guidance is called chesed, imken iyatov lakoil, so then it should be good for everybody. Ume'ayin shoyrei shavaya umitzias lara. So the Kodesh Baruch Hu is running on chesed. So where is the root of existence and existence of evil? Ve'ima an hoga b'mishpat, and if HaKadosh Baruch Hu is running the world on justice, imkein ma toimer sha'mishpat hu nister. Why do you say that the mishpat is concealed? Didn't you tell me that all of the negatives that exist in the world, aren't they in essence originate from Hashem's midah of mishpat? In other words, he said before that within, how should I say it, that the possibility of punishment and negativity within the world also creates the possibility of evil within the world, right? So kind of like once the possibility of righteous punishment exists, so then the possibility of evil punishment, so to speak, not punishment, but evil
corruption.
Right, the corruption of justice becomes evil, right? So he's saying, so v'ima and hoga b'mishpat. So if you can tell me that there is the mode of mishpat is active. So why do you say that it's concealed? All the destructiveness that exists in the world are technically get their original root within that judgment. And this I'll explain to you for two reasons. Aleph, all the evil that exists is only from the ability of Hashem's justice to exist and his hiding of his goodness, right? If the justice is the opposite of chesed, which allows, in other words, that holds back the chesed, so that holding back of chesed also, again, creates the possibility of evil. Ukvar pirashtali, and you explained to me before, dover l'mayla barucha, this idea at length. Va'beis, ki aloi oimer atar, and the second thing, aren't you telling me now, shehester zeh nase mipnei shehavoynes goyim kach, that this concealment of justice is a result of the sins being so strong. Shia HaKadosh Baruch Hu master pon of me'alomai, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu needs to hide his face from the world. Imkein harei ze mishpat vadai, and that's also a sense of mishpat, because HaKadosh Baruch Hu is responding to the acts of man in a negative way. So that's also a type of a mishpat. So if HaKadosh Baruch Hu is concealing himself, so that's also mishpat, that's also justice. So So I'm not sure exactly where the neshama is coming in, but the neshama is saying that right that how meaning the way the Ramchal explained in Kuf Mem Beis in 142 that out of Chesed of Hakadosh Baruch Hu, Hashem maintains the world and
Right.
conceals His mishpat so that not to destroy the world. So there's a Chesed that provides the minimal amount of sustenance to keep the world, and there is a concealment of mishpat so that prevents the world from being destroyed and allows it to run freely, and that's toihu, and that's a chaos. So the neshama says, I don't understand. If it's chesed, then chesed should be all, I guess, and I'm not sure why that's a question, but chesed should be all, should be complete. And the mishpat, and if it's mishpat, so why do you say it's called concealment of mishpat when it's still mishpat? Yes, I'm not sure. I understand what the question is.
Right.
Because I think you're right. It's not chesed. It's not a chesed complete. It's not a complete chesed. It's a minimal chesed, and it's a different mode of mishpat, which is what the neshama, the seichel is trying to say, that there's a mishpat that runs on a different mode. So I don't know. Let's keep going for it, because I mean the response of the neshama is the seichel is Amar seichel vadei hetav to lishol vadei hetav lishol. Certainly, you're asking good, but let's see. V'hinei ayashav lecha ayashav lech kol advorim ha'ela al nocha. Now I will answer you all of these things properly. Hinei kvar pirashti l'mayla. I explained to you already above. Sheshoyrish kol mitzius hatov harash boilam hu hazeh hu yan histirodem baruch hu pnei tuvoy. The existence of all good and evil in the world is HaKadosh Baruch Hu's ability to hide His goodness.
Mm-hmm.
Right? By hiding His goodness, He creates the possibility of evil, and by returning it, He creates goodness. V'lokach mida zois anoisenes mokam el harois mitzad hester ponov. And this mida allows for the possibility of evil because of its ability to conceal Hashem's face. Ke'inyan shenemar
Mhm.
yoshes choshech sisroi. Kadosh Baruch Hu concealed himself with darkness. V'yesh b'midas zois shnei drachim. Now, within the midah of concealment, there are two ways. Ha'aleph, the first one,
Yeah.
hu behinosein hamokim lirois lizgaber v'lishloit shlita rabba. It allows, when the Kodesh Baruch Hu conceals His face, He allows evil to run amok and to gather strength. Mibli sheikayim aleim mishpotoi, without justice and punishment catching up with it. To cleanse the world from all this evil. Behamis es rishoyim onsham, for the rishoyim to get their punishment. She'oz, because if rishoyim would get their punishment, she'oz kivan shuloko harehu ke'achicha. We have a principle that says that once a rasha is punished, right? When a rasha gets makos,
Mhm.
the pasuk says v'im bin hakos harasha, and it says v'nikle achicha le'enecha, your brother will be kind of embarrassed or lowered before your eyes. So first it calls them a rasha, and then the pasuk calls them your brother. So the Gemara darshans kivan shiloko after malchus hareyu achicha. He then reverts back to being your brother because he earned his punishment. Okay, so again, the point is Rashoyim not being punished is also
Mhm.
a type of concealment because they don't get the cleansing that they need. Ela metoldos hester pnei ha'odem baruch hu yazel liyos rois ha'olam rabo olavein marpei. but it's only from a Kodesh Baruch Hu concealment that allows the world to kind of uh, get deeper and deeper in its destruction and its sickness. In Marpe, and there's no healer. So that's one expression of concealment. But there's a second expression of concealment, Gam hu tolu be'ester ponov, which is also a result of Hashem's concealment. However, this concealment is actually beneficial for the world.
Beneficial.
Beneficial, yes.
Mm.
How is it beneficial?
Sure doesn't.
And that is because it allows HaKadosh Baruch Hu's Hanhoga to be organized in a straight justice, in a proper justice. Because when those arrangements happen, then the world is cleansed of its evil. It's not in the way of chesed that punishes. I'm not sure. Hold on. Let me see. 1 second. They translate hamoicha over here. Hamoicha over here means erasing. Okay, erasing. So, not via the ways of chesed, hamoicha which erases sins, umachziran la'ayin, and turns them into nothingness. Ela b'derech hamishpat hamezare kol ra. But rather in the ways of mishpat, in the ways of justice, which hamezare kol ra al yidei ha'onshim, which I don't know hamezare alienates all evil through the various punishments. Because until the time comes when HaKadosh Baruch Hu fully reveals his power, his reign in the future, Yimche hachatoim, and erases the sins. So the only way to cleanse the world is through the straight justice. V'nimtza, okay, I'm not sure. Then I'll come back to this in a second. V'nimtza, so therefore, what comes out is when I speak of midas hamishpat, the midah of justice, what I'm speaking about hamishpat hayosher is the standard justice, which cleanses the world of evil. But when that mishpat justice is concealed, is hidden, I'm going to read the other gears over here. But when this mishpat is concealed in the ways of kilkul, the world as if it's rejected, and then evil strengthens in it. שפני האודן יזברך נסתור מן הבריאס ואז משמש בעולם תוהו ובוהו. I'm not sure
Getting a little confused.
what he wants to say here. I mean, he's saying that, and I'm not sure how this answers the question, because I don't understand the question really. But so he's saying that there are two ways That right, Hashem concealment is in two stages. The very fact that the whole concept of mishpat is in a certain sense a concealment, but it's a concealment that's beneficial for the world. Hashem punishes the wicked, cleanses the Rishoim of their sins, and that's good for the world. So that mishpat is good. But even though it is also a sense of concealment, because HaKadosh Baruch Hu's essence is not to punish, but rather to reward. So that's also a sense of concealment, but that concealment is beneficial. There's a second level of concealment, which when HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't even punish, and allows the world to run amok. And that's the second level of concealment. Again, that in itself is not complicated, and that makes perfect sense. I just don't know. I don't know what the confusion of the neshama was.
Hmm.
Anyways, okay. Again, I'm not sure. This last part, even though again it's very wordy and very, it it doesn't. It seems pretty logical. We understand that all of these modes, can logically exist. There could be a mode where the Averos are, not so significant, and you could be still in a mode. Okay, you do an Avera, go stand in the corner. You're going to get punished. And then there is a point where, standing in the corner doesn't work. You want to kick the kid out of the house, but you don't kick the kid out of the house. So you just, maintain the kid around until hopefully he grows up and gets better.
Right, right. That's the
They're,
stage.
they're both, levels of mishpat in a sense that it's not chesed. It's not in the mode of chesed, right? Neither one of those is a chesed existence. But both have, yet all mishpat has a source in chesed. The reason why I'm punishing you is also because of chesed, because I want it for your benefit. And right, and the reason why I'm keeping you around and not kicking you out altogether is also because of chesed, because I'm hoping you're going to come back. So I'm not sure if I understand the neshama's confusion previously to begin with. The chesed is the spark that allows the mishpat to exist, and the mishpat can have two expressions: the direct, let's call it direct expression, and the indirect expression. So, okay, so I'm not sure if I hear. Okay, let's keep going. The amnam. One second, my computer. Right. Okay. Ve'amnam yesh l'chol hadas hakdama
Mhm.
gdoila v'hi. Now, what you need to know is an important introduction, and this is what it is. Shebe'emes eina Kadosh Baruch Hu mois yigeh kaf lo'olam chas v'sholom. That Kadosh Baruch Hu never completely rejects his creations. Ve'eina oizu miniachas ha'olam, and he does never leaves the world and lets it just run on autopilot. But rather, even during that time when it looks like Hashem has completely abandoned the world. The reality is that the complete opposite. Baruch Hu at that very moment is innovating new good things for the world. V'nifloisov and his wonders. Umachshavoisov tomid kol hayoyim rak letikunim shel ha'olam. And Hashem's thoughts are how to redirect the world back to its tikkun. Lo likul kulei, not to its destruction. Ela shu mastir atzosoi hester gadol me'oid. But that plan is hidden from sight in a very deep way. V'oz nimtza ha'olam k'moy ozov. It looks like the
Mhm.
world is running on autopilot and abandonment. Ubnei ha'odam soivlim oinshe chatois ehem. And the people are kind of enduring all sorts of punishments for their sins. V'kach omru b'seinu zal. And this is what our rabbis have said, al Yaakov Avinu, with regards to Yaakov Avinu l'vashol. Vayomer Yisrael lomari oisemli. Israel, Yaakov says, why did you do this bad to me? Rotzel loimer. I'm sorry, Resh Lakish b'shem Rabbi Chama Bar Chanina. Rabbi Chama, right? Resh Lakish says name Rabbi Chama Bar Chanina. Ma'olam loy omer Yaakov Avinu dover shel batolo elazu. Because Yaakov never said a terrible thing besides this one. Omer HaKadosh Baruch Hu, because HaKadosh Baruch Hu says to himself, Ani oisik lehamlich b'noi b'mitzrayim. I
Mhm.
am pulling all different strings to make your son king in Egypt. V'hu oimer, and he says back, Loma hari oisimli, why did you do this evil for me? Harei who omer, that's what the pasuk says, nistara derachai me'Hashem. Hashem's ways are hidden. My ways are hidden from Hashem. What? Sorry, hold on. Nistara darki Hashem. My way is hidden from Hashem. I'm not sure what the pasuk is saying. The context right now. Behind he calls man shehoy Yaakov Avinu b'tzar al precious Yosef. That throughout the entire time that Yaakov Avinu was suffering in pain over over the absence of Yosef, Mimeno, from him, HaKadosh Baruch Hu lohoyo ela megalgal gegulim l'hamlech Yosef l'hachayos es Yaakov b'shalva. Throughout that time, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is, the story of Yosef was unfolding and making him into the king, and he's going to then maintain the family of Yaakov in peace. Ela shmitoich she'etza amuka hoysa, but the whole, there was a deep reason why it had to do through all these back ways. Hoyo hatzar over al Yaakov. And because of Yaakov didn't see it, so he was suffering through that tsar. But that for us is an example to all such cases. That whenever HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants to give an elevation to a person or to the world, Hine calls man his damein hatoiv. In other words, all the times that of preparation of goodness, einam izdamen ubo ela mitoich oimek eitza nisteres. It only comes via the like the hidden counsel. Valkain, and therefore yikra koidem loitzar. And therefore, before any serious goodness, there will be precede a level of tsar. Okay, so that's again, that's a, I mean, and so that's a twist. Yeah, no, just to understand, he just did a little switcheroo, Ramchal, because he started telling us that listen, there are times when the world is so dark that HaKadosh Baruch Hu lets it run on autopilot and makes it even darker. But at the core, he is giving it the love to sustain it. And also behind the scenes, during that dark times, he's doing all sorts of things to make it go back to its proper state. And then he does a switcheroo and he tells you something else. He says, but you know what else? Really, before every single good thing, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to do some sort of a darkness, because all goodness has to come through back channels. But we weren't talking about goodness. We were speaking about darkness. Darkness that was caused by humans. Humans did sins. Humans did terrible things. They plunged the world into darkness. And says Ramchal, don't worry. Despite the darkness, there's goodness. But now he says, I'll tell you that's something else. For every goodness, there has to be darkness. So again, maybe that's true. Again, maybe that concept is true, but he just did like a little 180-degree turn. Because we were talking about, listen, for whatever reason, there was a state of darkness, but don't worry, within that darkness, there is goodness behind the scenes. But now he's telling you something else. He's telling you by definition, there has to be darkness before any goodness. But he doesn't. Okay, and again, let's say it's true. He brings us a story with Yaakov that it shows that it's true, but we don't know why necessarily it has to be so. That he doesn't explain. Why before every goodness there has to be darkness, and why every goodness has to come via some sort of backward channels, right? That is not clear to us. He never explained why it has to be that way. He just kind of again threw it in here, even though it doesn't seem to belong here.
I think Moshe did in Hazena, like saying, you're going to fail. So it's going to be better at some point. And then like, you're going to send Mashiach. So like, we're at the fail. Like, it's going to happen.
I
Eventually.
understand, but I hear what you're saying, but I'm not exactly addressing that point.
No, but the point is like, yeah, it's going to be dark at some point.
Right. Again, I'm fine with that. If you tell me,
But then he says, but he'll remember you, he'll send Maria. So the good coming. It's
right, but
that,
again,
and
Ramchal that's what I'm saying. Ramchal just did a switcheroo.
I know.
If you're telling me that, listen, Jews are going to do bad things, they're going to bring down the darkness, but despite the darkness, HaKadosh Baruch Hu bring out the light.
Yeah.
That's the beginning of this passage. But
Yeah.
then Ramchal did 180, and he told us something new. And he said that before any goodness, HaKadosh Baruch Hu sends darkness.
Oh, he sent darkness.
Right. Because he's telling us that every good thing has to come through a hidden backward channel. So there has to be a darkness before any goodness. So that's different. That's a new concept. That's not the same katnas that despite the darkness, there's going to be light. This is a new concept that if you want light, you got to have darkness.
Yeah, for balance. We covered it before.
Well, it's not balance. It seems to be saying that the only that it has to it's a backward channel that it has to come through through a distance, through confusion, through darkness. And again, maybe I'm not saying that the concept doesn't make sense. I'm just saying he brings it in as if it's one concept, but they're two different concepts. Okay. Anyways, Varezek inyan shin omr zal, and this is like what the Gemara says. Sholosh matanos toivos nosan HaKadosh Baruch Hu Israel. There are three great gifts, good gifts that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave to Klal Israel. V'kulan lo nosan el alidei Yisurin. And all three of these he only gave through Yisurin, through afflictions. Okay. So let us go back to our topic. Kihine hamadrega harishoino b'matzave ha'olam hazeh hu beyois mishpoto yisborach nistar. So the first madrega, the first level of the five that he's going to tell us is when HaKadosh Baruch Hu's mishpat is completely concealed. Ve'einoi mizgale l'nakois harois min ha'oretz. And therefore, it does not do what it's supposed to do, which is punish the wicked and cleanse them from their sins. And during that time, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is not known in the world, right? He feels like he abandoned it. And when was this time? This was during the time of Galut Mitzrayim. Okay, we're not going to read all five today because we just don't have time, but I'm just going to read the second one just so we at least get some sort of a contrast. Hamatzav Hasheni. So what's the second stage? Hu hazman kizman hazeh. That's our time. So the second time he's saying is our time, which is, I'm assuming, is also golus, but it's a different type of golus. Asher ein novi v'chayzeh. During our time, there is no prophet and no visionary. Ve'ein etonu oisois moifsim, and there's also no signs and no wonders. L'chayev kol odom l'hakir gduloso yisbarach. That would obligate each person to recognize God's greatness. Amnam yiyeh eze gilu yoiser ve'eze yediyah migduloso yisbarach. But sometimes there is sort of a little bit of revelation, and sometimes a little bit of knowledge of his greatness. V'tiri, but look, see, ki golus Mitzrayim vaday lo hoyo ki golus ahu lefonav u'la'acharav. That the exile of Mitzrayim was not like any exile before it or after it. Shehoyu Yisrael mishukoyim ba'avoida, because during that time Jews were plunged in slavery. V'lohoy so Torah, but there was also no Torah. V'lohoy Yisrael uman ivdelas b'chukoiseho, and Jews were not yet a nation separated, differentiated by its own laws, and its own mitzvahs like today's Jews. And the people did not recognize the name of the God at all. However, now at our present Golus, we're also in Golus, but our present Golus is easier. Okay, I mean that's hard to say after the Holocaust or after the Crusades, but the Ramchal is saying that we might be suffering more physically, but spiritually, psychologically, we have a clear sense of identity, and our suffering only strengthens our sense of identity. While the Golus Mitzrayim, I mean, it also strengthened the sense of identity, I would say, but potentially it could have completely destroyed the identity because the identity had not yet developed. Today we have the Torah, so even though we are still in exile, we wouldn't call our time a time of toihu, of chaos or void, as they called the first 2,000 years of the world. For there is a Torah, it was given to us from the heavens, and it is in our hands forever and ever. Thanks to God. And God's name is even known amongst nations. Okay, so that is so there's basically, so we see two types of two levels of concealment: the original concealment, which is total concealment, and concealment light, which is our times of Golus. Okay, so the other two are going to be just so these two are the two levels of Golus. The next two are going to be two levels of not Golus. In other words, real Geula and whatever it was during the two Beit HaMikdashes. And the fifth level would be, the highest, the complete level of revelation. Okay, so those are two and one basically. That's how Ramchal is going to set up the 5 different stages of the world. Okay, all right. Let's conclude on this, and we'll pick up next year.
All right. Shana Rabba Yerushalayim.
Yeah, Ksiva v'chasim tova, a good bench to your.
Actually,
Use of Ramchal should be protect us and
Amen.
yeah.
I
What were you saying?
have an idea about the darkness. What if we're just not looking far enough? And then any neshama have to go through Gehenna. So before it becomes totally pure, maybe that's what he's talking about.
I didn't get it. Try again.
No, that's what we're talking about. That Hashem will bring before any goodness come.
Right.
What he's talking about Gehenna, the final stage. Like every neshama have to go through Gehenna. The final purification.
But
Like
that's not what I don't think that's what he's talking about.
maybe, but if you go looking all the way to the end, the final stage, that's how it's gonna end.
Right, but that's
It's the end, concept itself, the end of ends. That's how it ends. Like it goes. Well, maybe it's not what he's talking about, but technically, yeah.
I mean, in a certain sense, it's possibly the same concept. Meaning, the reason why we think, he brought the Chazal that there were 3 good gifts that Hashem gave to the Jewish
Yeah,
people,
yeah,
and they
yeah.
got through affliction. In other words, I'm assuming the idea, or at least I always would have thought the idea was that if I'm giving you a level of spirituality that you don't deserve, right? These things are so good, so out, so above your level that if you want to get to that level, you're going to have to go through something that
Yeah.
will pick you up, right? Just like we understand that in order to earn Eretz Yisrael, we had to go through the test of Egypt. And the Egypt was our furnace to purify us. So in that sense, Olam Haba is such a high level of existence that in order to earn it, you got to go through the purification of Gehenna. So
Yeah.
in
So
that sense, it kind of makes sense. Except the
the
only
only
thing that doesn't sit well with me is that Gehenna is, we look at it as the standard program. You did sins, you picked up some sins, you got to cleanse them. This is not
but that's how he brought it in. It's like it's said. It's gonna happen. That's how it has to be. That's
right.
how.
But he calls this Eitza Amuka. He calls this like deep counsel, as if it's like I don't know, invisible, sort of unexpected ways. I hear. I have to think about it. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I'm I'm not sure. I just don't even understand why he brought this concept in here.
Oh
The
well.
concept doesn't really belong because, again, I'm not saying that the concept doesn't exist. I'm just saying it's not. He seems, he
Yeah.
kind of like did a
Got it.
switcheroo without letting us know that he did a switcheroo.
Okay.
So I'm not
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. All right.